Hi, I'm Camila from Ventura Wild. Today we're going to talk about composting, and in particular we're going to talk about worm composting, also known as vermiculture. Where do your food scraps go? Today I'm going to show you where I'm going to take mine. Follow me this way. So food scraps are stuff that we make in our kitchen that we don't end up eating, and usually they end up in the landfill. So in the landfill they don't break down as well and they don't turn into nutrients for soil. So today we're going to feed all of our food scraps to our worms. And what's great about vermiculture and worm composting is that the worms will eat all of your food waste. Here's a nice chunk of them. And when they eat your food waste, they're recycling those nutrients that you would normally throw away into a landfill, and they put it back into your soil so that you can help your garden grow better plants, and also all kinds of plants will benefit from this. So in nature, it happens naturally, but here we're gonna do it with our own system, our 2-bucket system. All right, so today to feed the worms, they don't have mouths, or they do have mouths, but they don't have any teeth. And so we wanna make sure that the food that we give them is small enough that they can just munch on and break apart pretty easily. So leafy greens are great because you don't really need to break them up. But anything that's a little bit bigger size, like say this eggshell, would need to be smaller pieces because they don't have big jaws to move around. So how I help the worms is I break up all my things. You can also use a blender. And then you just sprinkle them on. And I like to feed one side. So this is the side I've been feeding this week. What that does is it helps concentrate all your worms to this half of your container. They don't like light, so they usually scurry down to the bottom when you uncover the bedding. I'll show you guys this side. This is the other half that I have not been feeding this week, and so it's pretty stark and there's not as much activity under here. So the worms are traveling and moving through, and as they move across to the other side, they're wiggling through all the food they're eating and they're pooping it out into nutrients or castings that we will eventually collect and feed to our soil. Okay. So, have you ever held a worm? They can move backwards, forwards, side to side. They can go front and back without using hands or legs. Pretty incredible. They make tunnels in the soil for all of the nutrients and water to aerate through. So who are these worms? Let's introduce ourselves to them. So there's all kinds of worms in the world. There's over 14 types of species of worms. And the worms we use in our worm bin are red wiggler worms. The scientific name is California lombrici. I don't know if I said it correctly, but basically they're California type worms, and they are red wigglers. They like to clump together, so they tend to congregate around same food sources, and then they'll eat it all up together, and then they move to the next one. Whereas a lot of other worms, like earthworms, like to move more independently. They don't really like to work together. They get kind of grumpy in small spaces, and so having them all in a worm bin isn't the best idea. That's better in a compost pile, like a standing pile outside. So the red wigglers are great because they reproduce really fast too. So they eat a lot of variety of foods. They congregate to eat them quickly, and then they reproduce quickly so they can make more worms quickly for your soil to be nice and strong. So what happens after they wiggle around is they wiggle, and as they're moving, they're squishing all of their nutrients through their bodies, digesting it, and then eventually it goes out their tail. So they have anatomy. Here, let's kind of see one. You can see here, this is the head moving around, looking, they're sensing. They don't have eyes, so they're just sensing for where to feel next. And then they don't have a spine either, so they're just all a piece of flesh and muscle that is moving, and there's this little speed bump in the middle of their back, and that's kind of just the way to distinct their top half from their bottom half. They have many hearts. That's a cool fact to know, is they have multiple hearts, up to like more than 12 sometimes. And then their tail is towards the end. Their tail, you can tell when they're reproducing because like they'll have little eggs at the end of their tail too. All right, so here we have two 27-gallon bins. They're really big containers. You can use any size you want as long as they're two of the same size, because what we're gonna do is this. So I'm gonna stack one in the other. And before that, I'm going to drill holes, but I want you guys to see what it will look like once we do have the full setup. The lids you can kind of leave to the side. You only need one to cover the top, but you'll want to put the first spin. We'll drill holes on the side, which I'll show you in a second, and along the bottom. We'll place it into here like so, and what's nice is that this couple inches here leaves a couple inches at the bottom for you to collect all your castings and your worm tea, which is good for your plants. Alright, so what you'll need for this project to make your own worm bin is a drill bit and some plastic containers. I'm not going to drill holes in both of my containers, only one of them. So this is the one I will be drilling into. And with plastic, you have to be careful because sometimes it can crack. So I'm just going to do kind of nice, easy holes. Just about 3 or 4 inches apart is fine.